From Mitch. Gentlemen, how do you let your partners in? How do you let them help you with your darkest times when you've spent all your mental and emotional capacity? Russ, you're wired up.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, sadly, I lost my wife 4 years ago. But my wife, we met when we were 11 years old at high school. First day of high school, we met, and we've never been apart since until 4 years ago, breast cancer took her. But I didn't tend to bring my work home with me a lot, and my kids kind of recognised me being on the TV. Now and again, and Heather looked after my kids. I was away playing homicide detective a lot, so I'd be away in the country or in the city, and Heather brought my kids up. But we didn't really talk much about work. I tended to keep it to myself. And somebody asked me, do you have nightmares? Well, I didn't have nightmares, but my mind was active. I was a sleepwalker. So a lot of the times I'd play out stuff, and I'd grab Heather some nights and say, come on, let's go. We're going to catch these escapees. Actually, one night I woke up and I was in a murder trial, and I've been rehearsing my evidence, and I've got up and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I've grabbed my car keys, walked to the front door, I had a briefcase in my hand, got into the police car at the front, but I was in my underpants. I was still asleep. I walked to my car in my sleep and then realised, where am I?
Okay, I didn't realise we were going to get to underpants. Okay, what type of underpants were you wearing? All right, one here for Jeff, because it says your name, Jeffrey. It's from an anonymous. You spend a lot of time with troubled youths. What is the biggest issue you notice facing young people right now?
Just not feeling good enough. I think a lot of parents go missing, and like Russ said, we go out with the greatest intention. He's out busy saving, people's lives, I suppose, in the community, representing the community, and we sort of tend to forget. A lot of parents in this situation, they're doing their best for their kids, but a lot of the kids feel that they don't matter because they're just not there kicking a football in an afternoon. And if I can share that with yourselves, and you're a parent, try and set a time, once a week at least, to go and shoot a netball with your daughter or kick a football with your son, and because they do feel isolated, and obviously youth suicides are a lot more prevalent now, and I think it's important that we can sort of make sure, in a world with so much connection, there's so much disconnection, and we just don't talk, sit down and talk. When you get to a place, turn the phone off, especially with your kids as an example. Turn that phone off, have some quality time with your family or your partner.
Yeah, good. Good advice. Good advice.
It's how Sal's happy.
All right, now I'm not sure who this one's directed at. It's from Jane. Do you believe police corruption is worse now or better than it was in the past? Why are you giving it to Russell?
I think we've certainly cleaned our act up a bit. I think you're under so much scrutiny. Everybody is watching everything you do. CCTV cameras everywhere. You can't get away. That's not the right word. No, what I'm saying is, if you're of that mind to want to continue to do stupidity, and do the corruption thing, you won't survive. You won't survive. And I welcome everything they do to weed these people out, because, as I said, it brought great shame. Roger Rogerson and Glenn McNamara brought great shame to us as detectives for what they did. They brutally killed this kid for profit to gain $18 million in drugs. That's what it was all about. And they used all their skill, all their people often said, oh, well, that was sloppy work. They knew there was cameras. They must have known what was going on. They did. They planned this murder months in advance. And to weed those two out was a great day for us.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, Russell and I, we were, I think, fortunate because we got to see it, but we were in major crime when the Police Royal Commission came through, and we came through without any issues. And we don't defend corrupt police. They bring embarrassment on us all. I look at corruption today, because there is so much scrutiny, in a little bit of different light, that if jobs are being neglected, work's not being done, I think there can be another form of corruption, and that's not doing your job. And it's not the organised taking dollars or loading people up, but it's not putting the effort into an investigation that should be put into an investigation. I personally find that as corrupt as any of the other more old school traditional type of corruptions.
Agree.
Jeff, I suppose we better ask you.
I think back in the day there was a lot more corruption, that's for sure. And I'd rather hand over the money back then than be charged at that point in time by the police officer. So it worked well for me. But but over time, I think the listening devices, the things that come into the police force. And when I say that, there's no doubt there's good and bad. Even in our world, there's people that were dobbing us in. So there's good and bad in amongst all of that. And no doubt it got cleaned up. For me, even in that last arrest, 50,000 did go missing, and we were under surveillance from the time we got back to the hotel with the money, to clarify that. So all the money from the bank was at the hotel. We then left to Foot Locker, and basically, as I said, we took enough to. I think I took $5,000 or something of that nature. And when the count came back, it was 50 grand short. So, and that unit was disbanded for that particular reason, I think, down in Victoria at that point in time. Yeah. And no doubt probably under investigation for other stuff as well. But there's good and bad amongst every sort of organisation. And
I think another aspect of the police corruption, if you've got someone like Jeff, what faith do you have in anything? If you're doing the crimes and then you see the corruption going with police. So, they do need to be brought into account for it. Here's another one for Russell. Police have to sacrifice so much for their careers, including time with their families and loved ones. Looking back, was it worth it? That's an interesting question. Like you've now at the 42 years in the cops. You look back, you've lost Heather. You look back, has it been worth it? The effort that you've put into your career?
I look back now and wonder about that as well, about the lost time, and that's what I find difficult now, because back in the day, I was a homicide detective. It was my job to go and solve this crime and do the best I could, and to the detriment of everything else, because that's what I did. And there is a lot of times I missed, honestly, that I wish I had a lot more time. Yeah. But one thing I did do, I was always home for the kids' birthdays and for Christmases and that. So, and get back to what you said about the family time. I always managed to do that, even leaving early hours of the morning at a country to drive home, to be at home. I was always home for those main events, but there was a lot of time I didn't spend at home. Yeah, and I regret that now.
And you look back and you can't change it. There's sacrifices, that is the nature of the work. As a homicide detective, you're going to be away for a long time. Yeah. Okay. I'll give this a double edge. This question. What is the funniest or strangest thing you've ever walked into a crime scene? So you can both probably ask. You've created the crime scene, Jeff. What was the funniest thing?
I don't know if I can even say it properly.
You forget to bring a gun? Did you forget to bring a gun or something to a job? Or?
Nah.
Police waiting for you?
The getaway car with no petrol? Or?
Well, actually, when I served the 5 years, funnily enough, I went as a consultant, and believe it or not, and I wasn't meant to be there that day, and sat off the back end of it. I'd been charged before where I'd walked out of the house, and they said Jeff was wearing white pants, dark top, and had that charge surveillance unit. I was major crime, constantly surveillance, constantly. It was relentless. This crime happens. I get involved in it. I'm in the bank. They turn around, come in. We need your help. How do you hit this safe open? I go inside. Have no balaclava. I got my a shirt on. I pulled a shirt over my head, and basically sledgehammer the thing. Turn around, and the manager and the co-manager stand there saying, "Now what?" And I said, "We've got two choices. You can move out the way. I'm going to get myself out, get you out of the way." And end up getting back to the car, and they're trying to start the car at this point in time. And I look across, and there's no petrol, and I hit the bloke across the back of the head and said, "There's no petrol, you idiot." It's just,
even in the cops, we've got to work with some dopes.
It was just, and sure enough, we end up in we're speeding along, and I'm like, "Settle down." He settles down. I'm talking to the co-accused, and the next thing, highway patrol goes past. I look up, he's speeding again, hit him across the back of the head again. So, just like, cost you 5 years, and unfortunately, sometimes these things happen.
Yeah. Russ, have you got a story?
Oh, there's lots of funny times. in very serious situations. I worked on a couple of murders in where a man was shot and run over in Campbelltown, and we tracked the offenders up to Darwin. So I flew up to Darwin with my mate, and beforehand we sent messages up to the local police up in Northern Territory, and they're a breed of their own, the police up there. Fair dinkum. Anyway, so we radioed, we said, listen, we need you to execute a search warrant on this house when we get up there, because we think this bloke's got a lot of weaponry in his house. So they've taken it to their assistant commissioner, who said, listen, these New South Wales police are corrupt. They're going to bring the murder weapon up on the plane, and they're going to plant it in the house. So this is what's going to happen. The two Sydney detectives are going to stand outside on the footpath across the road. They're not to enter the house at all. You've got to wait till the sun comes up. You've got to wait till it's light. You've got to go and tap on the door and announce who you are. Hello, police, can we come in? And we thought, we're telling them this is wrong. This is wrong. So how are we going to bring up this murder weapon, allegedly? So we go to the first house, and all of a sudden they wait for the sun up, knock on the door. As they go into the house, there's no one inside, but they find this huge cache of weapons. Any amount of crossbows and guns and machine guns in this house. So we said to the guys, listen, you better change your tactics on this next occasion. This is the next house we're going to go to. So this time they brought in their, I think they're called the Star Force. They're equivalent of our tactical blokes, but they are really, as I said, they must have been on steroids, but they're in the back of this ute. And
they might have gone to the gym, Russ.
Driven down the car. We're sitting across the road on the footpath, as we were supposed to do. We see the car roar up the road, and they've jumped out of the car 50 yards from the house. Guns over their head. Ah! Bang! And they've crashed into this house. And they've put this gun in this guy's mouth. And you could hear his teeth rattling. Where's your brother? Where's your brother? And he wasn't there in the house. So we went to another house. We found him in the third house, sitting in the toilet in the third house. But it just opened my eyes to think. But after we arrested him, the locals took us out and entertained us. And I don't drink, so I'm the sensible guy of the pair. So my mate had a skinful, and we're asleep in the motel room, and all of a sudden, there a knock at the door. And all of a sudden, I open the door, and they burst in, the local cops, and they've got their guns out. And they said, come on, let's go. We're going out drinking. Yeah, fair dinkum. And, oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm starting to wonder about you, Russ. I thought I knew you. Is it Shotgun Oxford, Russell Shotgun Oxford?
But anyway, so we bring this bloke back on the plane, and my mate goes, and we're about to come into Sydney, and he goes off to go to the toilet, and I'm sitting next to him on the plane, and I'm sitting watching this bloke. We charge him with murder and extradite him back to Sydney. And he's sitting on the plane, and he's writing on his boarding pass about the police have been very good to me, blah, 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 and I'm just watching his note. I thought, I'm going to grab that at some stage. And then I look across him, and I said, mate, I know you've done this. And he said, yeah, I did it. And he confessed to the murder. So I got him to sign the boarding pass. True story.
Yeah, I hope so, Russ. Jesus Christ.
He's confessed on the boarding pass. So my mate comes back from the toilet, and I said, guess what? I said, he's just fessed up. And he goes, bullshit. And I said, tell him. And sure enough, he did. He confessed on the plane. So we get to court and we produce this evidence.
Butter wouldn't melt in your mouth, Russell. Guys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, that's probably more appropriate. I think it's about time we wrap up. We are going to stay back and mingle and circulate after this. Circulate is a better word. Okay. I just want to talk very, very briefly about Eye Catch Killers. This is what it's all about. Yeah, we've got Russell sitting beside Jeff, hearing stories, seeing the humanity from both sides, the humour from both sides, and the importance of that. And I think every time that we sit down with someone on Eye Catch Killers that might have been on the other side of the law, I learn a little bit and the barriers that break down. These two guests, first guests on the first live event we've done, not by just luck, we didn't pull the names out of the raffle, but just very impressive. And the winner is...
Sydney.
You're not adopting the position there,
This is an undercover...
Is this telling me you've got me for all the other stuff I've done in that duck?
And we've never on I Catch Killers arrested someone live. And we're going to turn the tables. It's Russell for all his brutality, all these confessions that you've got. Could we just give a big round of applause to our two guests?